Undeniably, it seems like between Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene, there's a movement, at least this week, to sort of reframe the quote-unquote victims of January 6th as the defendants themselves, right? We know that Marjorie Taylor Greene, I believe, have sent a letter to the D.C. mayor over the treatment of January 6 detainees in D.C. jail. They are going there to visit them, to check on how they're doing. Do you expect a fight between the Oversight Committee, which Marjorie Taylor Greene sits on, and James Comer does as well, and the D.C. mayor over this? And do you have any intel on exactly how the January 6th detainees, defendants, are being treated in D.C. jail?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Just these sudden criminal justice reformers come out of nowhere, right? Suddenly they care about the conditions in the D.C. jail, which have been going on for decades, really. But suddenly, a bunch of white people, Trump supporters, are locked up there, and there's all of this public interest. So I think that, that's, frankly, it could be something that will be good overall for the jail to get a little extra scrutiny there, because they've had some longstanding issues. But honestly, there's two facilities over there, and the one that the January 6th defendants are being held in is the better of the two. And that's what these examinations by the Marshals Service have found out over the course of the period which they're being held. But I think, more broadly, there's a lot of misinformation about how many defendants are being held. And, there's this use of the word political prisoner, saying, that 1,000 people have been arrested. And I think when you talk to a lot of people, as I did last year or the year before, when there was a rally in support of a lot of these defendants, they were under this impression that all of these people were being locked up pre-trial on misdemeanors. And that's just not what's happening. Each one of these individuals who is being held pre-trial has had an individualized assessment by a federal judge, by a federal magistrate judge, or a judge or an appeals court even, about whether or not they need to be held pre-trial. Unlike in a lot of states where people are held simply because they cannot afford a certain amount of money to put up for bail, that doesn't happen in the federal system. Nobody is being held because they can't come up with a certain amount of cash. They're all being held because they had an individualized assessment about the danger that they pose to the community, the danger, the extent of the evidence against them, and whether or not they pose a threat going forward. So that's something that a lot of people who have contact with the criminal justice system don't really get. So they're on the lucky side of this, but they're acting as though they're the victims, when in reality, they're getting something that a lot of people in the criminal justice system don't.
Well, we can thank the January 6th defendants for calling attention to the inequities of the cash bail system. There's that. Ryan Riley, NBC News justice reporter. Thanks for your time, Ryan.